Hey, Robert. Hi, how you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. Good to
Well,
see you.
thank you so much. Welcome to the latest in our series of the Customer-Centric Mindset. This is a series that we've pulled together to explore the 7 different behaviors, traits, characteristics of CX leaders who are advancing the practice. We've been monitoring it for the last sort of 15 years and identified them. And one of the key behaviors is experimentation. And I met Robert at the end of last year when I became qualified as a Lego Serious Play workshop designer and moderator. And I could not think of anyone better in the world to talk about experimentation with than Robert. So thank you so much for giving us your time, Robert.
Yeah.
We only have 30 minutes. I spent a week with you, which wasn't long enough. So now how are we going to fit it into 30 minutes? But we'll give it a go. So welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
So we'll get into it. So Lego Serious Play is something I'm sure many of the people who are watching will have heard of and understood. But I described in the description as, you are the master. You're the originator, the creator of this practice. So I'm really keen to understand where it began for you. Where were you when the idea of Lego Serious Play started to formulate?
I was working in Lego, and I was actually working as director of product development for the educational division. I was developing products so that children could learn science and technology by making stuff out of Lego. And I got involved in the Lego Serious Play idea sort of about 3 years into its history. It all goes back to the mid-90s when the CEO of the Lego company had this feeling that we might not always be a company that is successful. So are we ready for a different kind of future? Are we ready for a future where we face more competition, stuff like that? And he kind of felt that it was hard for his executive team to imagine that Lego could get into trouble and Lego might have to develop. So he had this idea that that if bricks are good to stimulate children's imagination, maybe they could also still sort of inspire the imagination of my executive team. Mm-hmm. So he teamed up with a couple of professors at IMD and said, can we use bricks to somehow get imagination going and experiment with a different kind of future? And at the same time, these two professors had this idea, could you think of strategy making as play? So they began, going into boardrooms, dump a ton of bricks on the table and then say, okay, now build your future strategy and stuff like that. And they all had fun for 45 minutes, but then it's sort of, okay, so what do we do? What is it, right? And after these 3 or 4 years, I got involved in it because my expertise at that point was, how can you learn something from making stuff out of Lego bricks? So I said, well, Robert, we can't get this idea to work. We cannot somehow get a process going so that it really helps executives stimulate their imagination about what could we look like in the future. So can you look at it? So I started looking at it and ultimately sort of had a process in place, which today is known as the Lego Serious Play method, right? And I actually looked at it very technically, and at some point I had a process in place and I tried it out on my own team. I had this product development team. I said, okay, we're going to try this strategy process workshop we have now and see how it works. And during the process, I had obviously found out that the key thing is you need to get everybody involved. Mm-hmm. And after these 2 days, we had this strategy workshop. Yes, the method works. But my biggest aha was that part of my team was my 28-year-old administrative assistant. Mm-hmm. And the best answers actually came from her. And I said, why did you say all these things? Why have you never sort of contributed all of this stuff? He said, well, I was never expected to participate in this here. And so this was for me this big eureka moment. Okay, we have something really, really, really good here. We have something that breaks this idea of when you try to get people around the table to do something, you run into the 20-80 syndrome, meaning that 20% of the people around the table use 80% of the talking time to talk about what they always talk about, and which we know they're going to talk about before you even begin, right? And the real problem with that is we do not get enough out of the 80% around the table. We do not get enough out of this, Jan. So this was for me okay, we have a method here, which is called the Lego Series Play, which is a method that really, really can somehow get all potential out of the people around the table in the room. So this is really how it all started.
Fabulous. So, and that's something that, when it comes to experimenting, I think it's really important to know why you're doing it. I mean, you come across that, but actually this is a very common problem when you're looking at things like CX strategy, or you're looking about progressing, advancing from one level of customer experience management to another. Maybe you're going from reactive to active. You've got to understand what the challenge is, why the conventional approaches aren't working. And I think that's something a lot of people come across, is that we always seem to end up with the same answers. And it's because, those same voices are coming forward to the front, and the natural order takes it, and the quieter voices go to the back, and we all carry on as before. So something like this, because I guess we're no longer using the airtime, we're using brick time.
Right. This is one part of the really big problem. The second challenge with experimentation is it is really hard for people to imagine that some kind of an approach could be radically different than from what it is right now. And yes, people can. Yes, I can. Maybe I can think about that. We could be more customer centric, or we could completely change our approach to something. But it's hard for them to somehow visualize what would something look like.
Yep.
So I found that the term "just imagine." Let's imagine that our approach to customer service was like this here. Let's imagine. That's easy, but then what is missing is how can you manifest this imagination? So by building, you can actually put, you can concretize your imagination. You can concretize some different way of thinking about it. And that seems to be the really, really big power. You can visualize something you can imagine.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just talk about, I can imagine it, but what does this imagination look like? What does it look like when we have achieved this state? This is going to look like this here. And that is the power of the bricks and the building. Yeah. So combined with the fact that you get all ideas on the table, combined with the fact that you give people a tool for them to concretize their imagination, which is the result of an experimentation.
Now, I mean, you could argue, well, that sounds great. Let's just get a whole bunch of bricks from the children's Lego box, throw them on the table, and let's just go. But obviously, having spent time with you and understanding it, every brick has a meaning. Every exercise is really honed to make sure that what we're trying to learn here is what we learn. So give us an appreciation of just kind of the science that sits behind it.
Yes, it is really, really grounded in a lot of learning science. And one of the sciences in terms of this here is that everything that we know, sort of, most of that we don't really know we know. We only know about sort of 5 to 10% of what we know. The rest, actually, we don't really know we know. But by building and using your hands and using your bricks, you can sort of unlock some of this unknown stuff, right? By building. So when you build with your hands, it helps you build in your mind, right? So people might have a sense of, I could imagine, that we probably would do some experiment like this here. But by building, you can actually bring these thoughts to expression. So there's a whole bunch of stuff into it in this case here that the learning science and stuff like that. So everything is really, like I say, really, really crafted. And ultimately, of course, it comes back to what kind of questions will trigger people's imagination and people's ideas for how could we experiment.
And I remember one of the exercises, which is really powerful, and I found this a lot. So in customer experience, we often talk about we need to be more empathetic. And if you run workshops with trying to get people to understand what that means, it can be really challenging. They have a preconceived idea. They'll land on some very conventional expressions of what empathy is. But what I found with the bricks is bricks really do allow you to explore an emotional area that you probably can't get to if you just try and articulate it.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain to us just, how you got to that point of using bricks to explore what empathy means, for instance, or other emotive areas?
No, I think it is. It is this thing with the hands and the building stuff, that when you formulate a question, say, yes, can you build a model so you can tell us a story, what you feel like when you meet an empathic person, or when you feel that you are in a conversation with empathy and stuff like that. And people look at me, Robert, there's no way I can do that, right? And well, you can do it. I'm sure you can do it. Just start taking the breaks and build right. And you only have 5 minutes. And they look at me, come on, I've been thinking about this for 3 years. So, but this is the magic. And this is where the science come out, that if you just start taking the breaks and thinking of those thoughts, and I'm not quite sure why it happens, but the miracle actually does happen. Out of this process of think, build, a visualization of what empathy means for you will emerge as a Lego model. And that's why I often get this question, Robert, I had no idea I could answer this here, but I did what you told me. Just start building. Don't have a meeting with yourself about what to build. Just start having these thoughts in your head, take some breaks, and out of this emerges a manifestation of what is empathy. And that is why when we call about Lego Series Play, it's a technique that can help you think. Then it can help you communicate that thinking to others. And then you can use this thinking and this communication to solve whatever problem you want to solve in the business context.
And I think it's really important to ensure with any experimentation that before you get there, it's a safe space. I mean, it's a disaster if you bring people in without an appreciation of what they're going to be doing, getting them to work in a way that they're not used to, and then expecting them to buy into the outcomes that they achieve. You've got to make sure that you create a safe space for experimentation, help them understand. I mean, obviously something like the Lego Serious Play helps because it's a well-known methodology, and there are hundreds of the world's largest corporates who can be testament to say this stuff works. But any type of experimentation, you've got to be really structured about it. I know that seems at odds, but going into it, if you want to get a leadership team to look at the same problem from a different way, a way that they've never looked at, to your point there, and I've thought about empathy for 3 years, I've never come up with that as an outcome. You're going to have to take it slow. You can't just throw them in and say, right, let's go on a weekend team break and we're going to be doing skydiving. They're going to go, no, I'm not involved at all with this. So it needs to be structured, doesn't it? And I know that from the way that you work, when you actually get into it, you don't just jump into that point around build me an emotion or build me a strategy. There's small exercises to gradually bring people along and help them understand I can do this. I've got the capability to do this.
No, we have a really, really rigid beginning of the workshop so people buy into it. And there's another sort of like the brain science underneath the beginning of a workshop. Because the brain has this, when it is in front of something new, it will either look, is this a threat to me or is this a reward to me? And we are also based on some of David Rock's work that say, well, when the brain makes up its mind, is this good for me or is this bad for me? It'll look for status. Am I sort of on the same status as everybody else? It will look for certainty. Do I know what's going on? It'll look for autonomy. Do I have some control over it? Am I with friends or foes? Is this a fair process? This is really what the brain checks when it's in something new. And if it comes out, yes, This is not a threat to my status. Yes, I know what's going on. Yes, I have autonomy. Yes, I'm with friends. Yes, this is fair. Then it will be more creative and it'll be more problem solving. So we have a really rigid beginning of the workshop.
Yeah.
So that
And
people, yes, I can be creative here. This is safe. I'm all listened to.
And I know this from first hand, but I was reading a piece by Jake. I think it's Jake Knapp, who's written a book about creating products people want, and he said it's really important to move the distractions aside.
Yeah.
Find the clear space to do it. And from your perspective, I know that you have to be there at the start. I mean, I remember the day before I actually flew to the wrong airport. I was in the wrong part of Denmark, I don't know if you remember, but I had to make it across. But despite the fact that it was a massive, logistical nightmare for me, you were very insistent. You have to be there at the start for this reason, because otherwise I wouldn't have qualified. This is a safe space. This is fair. I'd have just jumped into the middle of it, and it would have been disruptive. So that's the challenge sometimes in business, isn't it? To get those senior leaders to say, don't swan in 10 minutes late. You need to be there from the start. Otherwise, they are going to be disruptive. So creating an appreciation of what you've just mentioned there beforehand helps to create that kind of respect for experimenting. And one of the things I think also that we've discussed before is, if you kind of want to get someone to say, prove it to me, convince me, you can't do it with something like the bricks. You can't do it over Zoom. You can't have a call and say, yeah, this is how it's going to work. You need to be seeing and doing to understand it, don't you?
You need to experience this process of how the hands and the bricks help me can clarify thoughts. How the combination of having to express something with your hands and the bricks actually helps get thoughts out of your head and make them concrete. You have to experience that. And so when people say, can you tell me about Lego Serious Play? No, I cannot tell you about what it is. I can tell you why it exists, which is to get more out of people, right? But I can show you, right? And I always have this, okay, Robert, now I get it. Now I get it. But you have to sort of experience this magic that happens between the hands and the mind and the thinking.
And in the modern day, we're quite often, we have it ourselves, and we're working in many different countries. We'll have to organize a mural and do a collective workshop online. Something that I thought was very, very powerful was visually, when you start to see your own independent solution, it's fine. But when you start to see it combined with others, you get real strength in one. We all think alike, but two, we all bring something different here. And it's the sum of what we've created. This is the solution in front of us, which I guess you can't do online. You need to be in the room doing that, don't you?
You need to be in the room doing that, right? Because ultimately, also what often, when I show it to some people, what really impresses people is how much they learn about others' viewpoint in a very short time. Yes, one thing is that, yes, this became clear for me, but it also is, this is how you see it. Oh, this is how you see it. Or why haven't you, now we've been discussing this for 15 years. Why haven't you told me this before? Well, this I've been told you all the time, right? So I think it is this process. And I think that the other, you can say, secret sauce about Lego Serious Play is really that whenever we do something, it always begins with the individual making up their mind.
Yeah.
So if we want to sort of talk about what is empathy and what does it look like if we are more empathic in our customer approach and stuff like that, each individual in the room will begin by formulating their own imagination about that. And this is key. So you avoid the group thinking, you get people's authentic thoughts out.
Well, and
my experience has been that when people feel that they have been genuinely heard and understood, they are much more committed to stuff. They are much more committed. Okay, I'll commit to this here.
Well, one of the things I think you do, which you may or may not be aware of, is the way the workshop is designed, the outcome is almost secondary to the experience of the participant. Because you focus totally on what are they going to, they are actually the ones who are going to come out with the outcome here. So let's not worry about the outcome. Let's worry about the ingredients that are going into it, the people and the tools. If we can get them chiming, the outcome will kind of happen for itself. And I've seen so many workshop constructs where the total focus is, well, look, It doesn't matter how we get there. As long as we get the answer, we can move on. But of course, that then forgets that why will people come back to that room again and do it again if they're not enjoying it? And I think what Lego Seriously Play does beautifully is it's so respectful about the participants' experience, and it makes sure that they come out of it and go, when can we do the next thing? You know, when can we do that again? Because that just, for me, was such a great experience. And then when you're thinking about employee experience, and when you're thinking about how you want to engage people, you've got to choose something that makes them want to come to the room. It's really important.
No, it's totally important, and that's why, classic strategic seminars typically is a 3-day event. On the first day, the top management will show 165 PowerPoint slides, right? And then the second day, people have to make plans, etc., based on this new strategy. And then the third day, they want to have some relaxing and fun, right? So I will come and get this question. Well, can you come and do something Lego Serious Play on the third day? No, I cannot, right? But you should actually do this on day one instead, because if you do this on day one instead, the rest of your process will go much more smooth and go much better and stuff like that. Because there is this respect for others' viewpoints, and this fascination of, we all bring something different to the table, and the more we can utilize this, the better it will be for the entity as a whole. But it is magic. There is something magic. I think this is also. I have no clue why it really happens, but if you get the right questions in, if you give people to think about it, if you give them the breaks, magic will happen.
When I've been in rooms doing Lego Serious Play, what I've seen is really interesting is you can put your perspective forward, and then you'll have other people's perspectives. Now, what sometimes happens in a room like that is you hang on to your own perspective. It's like, I came up with this, I'm not going to break this. But there's this exercise where actually you start to go, I see more value in what you're saying. And you kind of move around and you realize, I've never seen that perspective before. And that inclusivity is so important. The other thing that I want to touch on as well is,
but I think this is really important, because I thought, Robert, that my answer to this was the absolute best. But having listened to the others, I actually think this one over there is even more useful.
You get people changing their mind. I mean, that doesn't happen normally in that sort of workshop.
But that will happen because people feel they have actually had the chance to, first of all, express their thoughts.
That's it. You get them out, don't you? The other thing I know you talk about is not being fixated with a planned strategy, but actually adopting sort of a learned strategy. Because then that does allow you, as you say, when you're working through things and say, I never saw that as a barrier before. We do need to address that. You can change during the session. And unlike when you're, as you mentioned, PowerPoint is what came to my mind. When you're writing on a flip chart, this is what we're going to do. This is how it's almost permanent. It's already in stone. But with the bricks, you kind of go, okay, right. That challenge is related to that challenge. We bring these together now. You have the ability to learn and change as you go. Whereas conventionally, as I say, you're putting it up on the wall. That one's going to move on to the next bit. Even though you might in your mind think, I don't think I agree with that anymore. But nobody wants to take people back in the workshop. Just like, that's just But when you're doing it with bricks, it's okay. Well, unclip that.
Totally.
It comes together. It's really practical for that as well.
No, and that's why, when we do a Lego system, nothing is really cast in stone. We always have the opportunity to learn more. We always have to change the opportunity to change our perspective, right? I see more, right? So that's why it just becomes much more efficient.
Absolutely.
So I often, when I get this question, why should I use Robert? Well, you should use it if you want to achieve more results in shorter time and have fun at the same time.
And just to kind of underpin it, it is a methodology. I mean, there is my manual from the event. And actually, if you want to cheat, there is a book, isn't it? You've got a book which has been around for a long time, so not promoting it, but there is a book. It just gives you for a few euro, it just gives you a flavor of kind of what this piece is. So we're coming to the end, but what I do want to know is if anyone's got any questions, if they put them into the chat, and then Rodrigo will, or Rebecca, I think it might be, say we'll put them up on the screen. But I've got one. I'm in quite a number of WhatsApp groups. I've actually got a WhatsApp message, and the WhatsApp message relates to senior leaders, very conventional thinkers. Can you use Lego Serious Play for any problem? Is it possible for any problem? Or are there some where you kind of go, you don't need Lego Serious Play?
Well, I think there are certain things where you don't need it. Well, I mean, if you just want to make a project plan of something, well, just go and make a project plan, right? But whenever you have a question where if you ask what is the answer to this around the table, you get as many different answers as you have people around it, then it might be a good idea to use Lego Serious Play.
Yeah. So where
it
we've
is
got differing opinions, it's a good way then, rather than going, well, okay, Robert, you've been here longer than me. Let's go with your idea. You then can bring the ideas in. Yeah.
And secondly, also, if you are a senior leader or leader or CEO, and if you don't really want to have people have an influence on what to do and not to do, then don't try to do Lego Serious Play. Just tell people this is what I want to do, right? Because Lego Serious Play is based on the fact that everybody has something to bring to the table, and the more you can bring that to the table, the better it will be for the entity. But if you're not really interested in other people's opinion, well, don't do Lego Serious Play. Just tell people what you want, right? This is based on the belief that you will get better decisions better if you involve people, right? Yeah. Whatever it is, right? That's the idea.
And I know one of the concerns which comes up in our team, because we work in about 25 different countries, is if we go and run a workshop in another country and we do it in English, then it gets really difficult for people to think in their home language and then try and convert what they mean into English. But as I understand, Lego Serious Play facilitators pretty much cover the globe now, don't they? I mean, irrelevant of where your country is, there'll be someone who's trained to this high standard who can facilitate workshops for you.
Yeah, we have facilitators in something like 45 different countries, or at least. Yeah. No, because this is obvious that it has to be in the local language in order to fully give people the safe feeling I can express my thoughts here.
And if you go onto Lego website and type in Lego Serious Play, you'll realize that it isn't just a case of reaching in and bringing out some bricks. There are packs for different things, for different purposes that have been really thought about what goes in here. And I know, having seen them opened up and put away, it's a whole part of the workshop is the unpacking and the putting away. I mean, having certain bricks, you don't have lots of minifigures, for instance. You don't want to cheat and just say, I'll put a person in there. You force people to really think about the bricks they use.
Yeah, absolutely, because it all helps their imagination and it all helps people bring more thoughts out. It definitely, So and I think all of these facilitators have the same basic training, so you will whether you expand a Lego Serious Play workshop in America or in Japan or in South Korea, it will always be the same experience.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I guess there's two things that if someone wants to think about Lego Serious Play as a workshop option, there are people like myself, and as we just said, in 45 countries who have been trained. You can reach out and find them. But if someone actually says, I work in a corporation, I'd love to develop my capability to bring this into my business, they can go to Rasmussen Consulting and they can sign up to one of your courses. I know there's, again, you'll do certain geographies, there'll people who do other geographies,
absolutely.
But that's something that people can sign up and join the list and become a part of.
Yep, and if you have a whole group of people within the company, will also come and do a private facilitating, because training as a facilitator is key. It is really, really key, because in Lego Serious Play, everything is really customized to meet the specific need of whatever the client need is.
Cool. I've got one question here. How do you create a culture where experimentation is encouraged and not penalized?
I think that by using Lego Serious Play is one of the ways of doing that, because the tagline is really play with the purpose. Because what is good with Lego bricks in many ways is that you can build them and take them apart. So this idea that you can try and do something, but then you can also try and do something else, right? So this idea that that you can experiment and try something and what if and imagine stuff. This is really what Lego Serious Play is. That nothing is cast in stone. I can try building this. Let me try building this. Let me try building this. Right.
Yep.
So I think that is versus, like you say, when words have come out and it was written on a flip chart, it seemed much more sort of, okay, this is what it is. Versus we just have this Lego model. Well, let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this.
Yeah, the whole, as you say, I mean, you don't You don't in a workshop where you're writing on a flip chart say imagine ever. It doesn't happen. It's just like, okay, so what's the answer? You say. I mean, you don't do that with Lego Series, but you don't say, give me the answer. You say imagine, and it just takes you. It's just incredible. Those words just take you into a different direction.
Imagine what our culture would feel like if we were much more experimenting. Then you can actually concretize that with the bricks, and this is the real power of the bricks. I can this would look like this here if we had a much more experimental culture.
So it's something people really should, if you're in customer centricity, it's a requirement. It is part of your responsibility to encourage experimentation in all areas. Otherwise, you're not going to get to different solutions really. Anish has asked, so I'll just kind of repeat. Anish has said, how can I become a Lego trainer? So if you go to Rasmussen Consulting, and you can look on there. You can find all the courses that Robert and his colleagues run, and pick one. And Anish, if you find it's not suitable geographically, then you can look more locally. And again, you'll find Lego Serious Play trainers nearer to where you are. So it isn't in person, it is a week, but it's a hugely enjoyable week. So I highly encourage anyone who's thinking or runs workshops to think about this as an approach. I've certainly found it something useful, things like customer value proposition development, for CX strategy, for team development, and kind of, what should our characteristics be in this team, how you bring to life brand values. I found it really useful for that. So it's a great technique to use in different ways. Cool. Well, Robert, sadly, we've come to the end of our time. So it's been great.
A pleasure.
It's been great catching up. I know a lot of people watch these afterwards as well, so we may well get some questions. But people can find you on LinkedIn, can't they? I mean,
they can, absolutely, yeah.
So it's Robert Rasmussen on LinkedIn. You can find Robert there.
My website is Rasmussen Consulting, so you can also go there and stuff like that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, if you want to find him. And, and look into it. There's lots of stuff out there on Lego Serious Play. You'll kind of find, make sure you look at something that comes from a certified facilitator, just to make sure that, everything that we've spoken about is in that realm, as opposed to, as you say, people who just pick up and play with Lego, which is fine, but this gives you a real structured approach to it. And
it is, because it's easy to build with bricks, but really use the bricks to solve problems is a different thing.
Absolutely. And if we could just flick up the slide at the end here, so we've just done experimenting. Recently we had Nate Brown on, who did Celebrating. He's kind of the cheerleader for CX. It's great to have him in place. And I think we're coming back with Open to Share Everything. I know we've got Federico Cesano from Sansid lined up for that. So we'll look forward to seeing you at another one of these webinars. But for now, Robert, thank you so much again. Really do appreciate you giving your time up, and wish you all the best with the future. Do take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.